I'll just call it informational and dump it all together in 9. Thank you very much. Just go around this way, yes.
Consent training.
Okay. Yep, that's there. Going around, Rowan.
Mid-mandate report to informational.
Okay, that is good. Camden.
By Buck, motion to substantive.
Great. Omar.
I'd like to add letter to CSU membership
Mm-hmm.
in informational and JMS tax clinic in presentation.
Okay. Can someone just confirm that Yay Quebec is here, or Yay for Quebec?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect, okay. Great, so this is all good. Is there anything else to be, oh yes, sorry, Devin?
I would like to add an informational point regarding soccer.
Okay. So it's CUCCR, if I recall correctly?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, is there anything else to be added, modified in the agenda before we move to a vote? All right, so at this point we can move to approve the agenda and all items under consent. Yes, Ellie? Okay, do we have a second? Sophie? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your placards. 14, all those opposed? None, and any abstentions? Oh, perfect. All right, 1. Thank you very much. Okay, so if you'll give me 1 second, I'll just PDF this and put it in the Facebook group. So at this point, the agenda as amended is in the Facebook group, so we can move on to our presenters. And we'll start off with, is it Yay for Quebec?
Y for Y.
Oh, Y for Y, my apologies. Okay, so you can stand, sit as you wish.
Okay. Well, can everyone hear me if I'm sitting?
Yeah.
Even down there? Okay. So, well, thanks a lot for having me, first of all. So my name is Malcolm Lewis Richmond, and I'm the president of Y for Y Quebec. It's a nonprofit association that was just created, actually, within Quebec. And Y for Y means youth for youth. And I have a handout here that I'll just pass on. I guess, can I circulate this around the table? Okay. So there's a few copies, and it just explains our mission and our group's mandate. So just in a nutshell, the purpose, the reason we created this group, myself and my 9 colleagues, I have 9 colleagues on my board. Our group aims to represent Quebec's English-speaking youth community as a language minority community. And it's sort of similar in a way to how in other provinces there are groups that are representing the French-speaking language minority community. So we're really excited about that because also in Quebec right now it's a time where the government is just putting into place a new secretariat that's responsible for relations with the English-speaking community. So my group and I, we found an opportunity to seek support from different levels of government, and currently we're supported by Canadian Heritage under the Department of Official Languages program, because they're responsible for ensuring the vitality of language minority communities. And so we feel, my group, Y4Y, feels that it's important that the English-speaking youth of Quebec, as a language minority community, it's important that our voice is heard amongst the decisional levels, so governments and in civil society. And so right now, what we're doing is we're incorporating as a nonprofit association. We're growing our membership base, and we're currently doing youth consultations right now. So we're meeting with youth from different organizations across the province, and so I'm happy to meet with the CSU today because you guys represent a lot of English-speaking youth from Quebec. So I was hoping to be able to do a more formal consultation process with some students here. And it could just be a little chat over some food to hear what English-speaking youth are feeling and are saying as being part of a language minority community in Canada. So that's the brief intro. Can I just ask if there are any questions right away, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone has any questions for Malcolm.
Well, I hope that was clear. So yeah, as I mentioned though, the youth consultations is a big part of our program really for the month of February and March. So I guess I'm also interested in hearing about your thoughts of what the best way to organize a youth consultation would be at Concordia. Whether it's it would be a standalone event where we would have like a lunch or something for students, or if we attended different AGMs that are already being organized for different faculties. So.
Does anyone have any comments or questions? If ever you want to leave your email address or anything, I can put it in because we have a shared Facebook group for counselors, and anyone who wants can contact you at any time regarding the summit or.
Yeah. So I could give the note taker my email.
Yep. That would be excellent. Sophie.
Just for, I guess, a little bit of clarity, are you asking for the CSU to facilitate this in conjunction with Y4Y, or would Y4Y be doing this sort of with recommendations from CSU counselors?
So we could probably facilitate it. It's more of a means of seeing if the council thinks it's like an appropriate kind of activity to do, and if the CSU could help mobilize students for this kind of activity.
Is there any more questions or discussion? What's it?
I think for more concrete actions that you'd want CSU to take, there is the external mobilization coordinator that I think might be able to help you. And there's also the student life coordinator here that could also, maybe if she could help you, she would give her help to you. I would suggest that you reach out to them personally. Their emails are on the website. I can also give you their emails after or before you leave. So please do that.
Okay.
They got a lot of help.
That'd be great. Thanks. And just if I can say more very concretely, what we're doing at Bishop's, for instance, is we're going there on a Saturday. A lot of students live on campus or right next to campus there, so coming in on a Saturday is not an issue for students there. And we're gonna have it's gonna be a 2-hour meeting actually, where we have a questionnaire to give to participants. So if at Concordia we could do something similar, like have an event on a weeknight, and then invite the students from different faculties to come, that'd be great.
Is there anything else to be discussed or any questions for Malcolm? All right, do you have anything else to bring to the table?
No, well that's really it. So I guess I'll talk to the student life coordinator in particular.
Yes, that would be Ahmed.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to come and visit us. And if your email, if you give it to either me or Ahmed, we can post it in the Facebook group. And then if counselors want to reach out to you, they'll be able to do so.
Well, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Okay. So if there's nothing further on this point, we can move.
Just a-
Yes?
I think in the agenda, the mid-mandate report was supposed to be an informational.
Oh, did I
In
put that
presentation,
wrong?
the letter to CSU membership was supposed to be an
Oh,
informational.
my apologies. I must have done a control
And the
B.
tax clinic was supposed to be in presentation.
Yeah, it should say tax clinic. My apologies. Can we just all accept that it says tax clinic instead of letter twice and be good with that? Sorry about that. Okay, so that's 5B is tax clinic. And Omar, this one's yours.
Yeah, so JMS reached out to us for a tax clinic with a proposal for funding. And they are here today to present and for council to make a decision on their presentation. Not sure if they're around. Okay.
Oh, sorry, the door locks automatically. Yeah. Yes.
Turn it on.
No, but
Last time somebody said there was still a spot open, so I'm gonna go with it. Yes, Peter?
yeah, I believe we still have one more on the working group that are open right now. There's only two for mine, like the one that for the other one has two now, but the other one only has one. So we still need one more.
Are we sure on that? Okay, every time this point comes to council, nobody's sure how many members are open or how many seats that we have, and it's really confusing. So I'd appreciate if somebody next time, if this comes back, can bring clarity on the issue, because every single time we do the exact same thing where nobody's certain how many seats are open. So it would be good if we could get some clarity on that issue. Yes, Veronica? Okay, so with that, we can move on to tax clinic proposal.
Yeah. So just installing
That was that discussion for the event committee right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to just move on and then come back?
To
Yeah, where is
Yeah, the
it?
computer's not open.
oh, it's not.
It's still
It's just-
Oh, it's your. Is it your laptop?
no.
But it's not. Okay. I know that usually we need the projector in order to.
Yeah, you can turn the projector on, that shouldn't be a problem, but I think you just want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
trying to sign in,
Presentation.
but we're having a little bit of difficulty with that. so
Okay.
Maybe if we give it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, time.
All right. So so while that's warming up, we can move on to 6, which is appointments. So if nobody's sure how many people are in the event committees, I'm going to say that we table this until next time so we can get some clarity on the issue, because I don't want to appoint a counselor to something that doesn't exist and then have them be disappointed. Yes, Veronica?
I forgot to add CCSL, just wanted to see for a counselor.
Okay. All right, can we all accept that CCSL will deal with in appointments instead of having to break Robert's rules? All right, perfect. Yes, Daniel? Oh, okay. All right, so can we just have a motion to table the event committees to next time? Rowan?
Motion to table the event committees.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Asma. All those in favor, please raise your placards. 15. All those opposed? 0. And any abstentions? 0. Perfect. Okay. So at this point, we'll secretly add a 6B, which is CCSL, just to get that filled. Veronica?
Yeah, so we have one seat open for a counselor on CCSL. CCSL is Concordia Council on Student Life. It's a council from the Dean of Students office. We meet once a month. It's a very fun committee. We meet Friday mornings. we rotate between Loyola and the downtown campus. Yeah, so we review presentations on student life, we allocate money on big projects, smaller projects too, so.
Is there anyone who would like to nominate themselves to sit on the Concordia Council on Student Life? Yes, Eleanor.
Am I supposed to vote against?
Oh, do you want to nominate yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Do we have a second? All right, Michaela. Is there anyone else who'd like to nominate themselves? Okay, so if not, your motivation.
I actually wanted to take part in this committee last semester already, but it took place when I was at work. So now that I can, I'm very willing. I'm very involved in student projects, so I'd be super glad to know and help what's happening within Concordia.
All right, thank you. Is there any more discussion to be had? Okay, so if not, we can move to a vote. So I just need a motion to appoint Eleanor. Yes, Ron?
CSL.
Okay, do we have a second by Tabia? All those in favor of appointing Eleanor, please raise your placards. 14, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1. Perfect, so that carries. JMAS Tax Clinic, how is it going?
It's still loading. We're opening the PowerPoint right now. So.
Okay. I feel
okay.
like,
Good.
It's good? Okay, perfect. So you have the floor.
Maybe make sure your computer's plugged in and it's on the right input because it's not receiving anything. Is there cables plugged in the computer for the HDMI?
Yeah, I checked, it was on.
Is there an option to
there's
click
like-
laptop?
When you graduated, I don't. Yeah.
That's just latest implementation.
It's good. It's a good It's a good color. Yes. What? You're trying to look presentable. Are we presenting?
Do you need the PowerPoint? Okay.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier to
Okay.
follow. So.
Because if worst comes to worst, you can always send it to me and I can disseminate it to the council group if it's really not working.
Would you turn on the projector?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You just have to change the source. There we go.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Okay. So, hello everybody. We're here to talk about the JMAS Tax Clinic. So, which of you here need to file your tax returns every year? So, it's a legal requirement by the Government of Canada to file your tax returns. And there's two things that we can't avoid in life. So, we can't avoid paying taxes and death. So, let's look at the students and their needs. So, as we saw, most students need to file their tax returns. And what ends up happening is that most students end up paying to have their taxes filed. So we see that a lot of students aren't aware of the basics of the tax returns, and we saw that many students are interested in the tax system, and they're curious as to how they can file their own taxes. And that's why we're here today. So today we'll be discussing who we are. So the John Molson Accounting Society will be looking at finding a need. We'll be talking about the tax clinic itself. We will be looking at the strengths and the weaknesses that we've assessed. We'll be looking at the opportunities for expansion, and we'll be looking at the JMS and the CSU partnership. So who we are. So we are a student-run association. So all of the members of our association are undergraduate students, and we are here. We represent about 2,000 students. And we are here to enhance the university experience of these students. We are responsible for bridging the gap between theory, practice, and professionals.
So what we do, we focus on 3 different pillars: social events, professional events, and academic events. And our events are listed on this slide. So we feel like there's a lot of students in university that live on their own or with friends, and we find that they already stress enough about paying for their tuition, their rent, their living expenses, their personal expenses. And we just feel that during tax season, students should not be paying that extra $30, $40 to get their taxes done when we have the skill sets as students, and we feel like as a community we should come together and help each other and provide that free service to Concordia students, but also eligible individuals in the Montreal community. So JMAS felt that it was important to do that, so we hosted our first tax clinic about 2 years ago, and it was actually the first English university tax clinic. So what happened is that there was 2 goals behind the tax clinic. The first goal was to provide Concordia students and eligible students the free tax filing service. And the second goal was to professionally train local students on how to prepare tax returns. So the result in 2016 was that the tax clinic was recognized by the Canadian government. We trained about 80 students on preparing tax returns, and we prepared about 275 tax returns. Last year, so in 2017, we trained about 130 students on how to prepare the tax returns, and we filed about 500 tax returns.
So some of the scope of the work that FE&I are responsible for is getting the authorization from the CRA to be legally recognized. We have to recruit and train the volunteers on how to prepare the tax returns. So we show them the tax software, and we train them properly so that they're able to provide quality service. We also are responsible for acquiring all the necessary resources, which include the paper, the printers, to be able to file the tax returns. And we are also responsible for determining a suitable location for the tax clinic, which is, again, will be hosted at Concordia this year. So some of the strengths we've seen from the tax clinic is that it can have a positive impact on the CSU's reputation. Additionally, we note that there is no legal liability for any of the hosts. We operate under the CRA's CVIT program. So this is the Community Volunteer Income Tax Preparation Program. And this program exempts all the hosts from any legal liabilities of filing and preparing tax returns. It promotes, the tax clinic promotes community involvement, so it gives an opportunity for students to give back to the community. It's a pro bono service for students and for any eligible members of the Montreal community. And it shows volunteers the value of tax preparation. So some of the weaknesses that we've seen is that we have untapped demand. So there's over 35,000 students within in the university. However, we were not able to reach all of them. And we really believe that with a partnership with the CSU, we'll have a greater reach and more students will come to us for tax preparation services, and therefore increasing the benefits that they get out of university. And we also saw a weakness in funding. So we were not able to fund all the logistics and marketing of our event.
So we come to CSU because we feel that together there are opportunities for expansion. So with extra funding, we'll be able to increase marketing efforts and advertise more. What we've been doing for the past 2 years is basically creating a Facebook event and just sharing it on Facebook, because we didn't have that extra fund to go beyond that, which we want to basically reach out to the Loyola campus this year. We also want to make sure that we cover the whole downtown area as well, so the H building, the JMSB building, and all the other buildings. We want a table, and we want to also be able to create informational pamphlets just to be able to go around to community centers, but also in the different campuses, and just spread the word. And we just want to basically reach out to new outlets, and we feel we'll be able to do that with all the channels that the CSU has. We also want to increase the scale of the clinic, which means that we want to rent more laptops, more printers, and have more supplies. By increasing the scale of the clinic, we'll be able to increase the number of tax returns we could do, but also reduce waiting time. And by having clients wait less, we'll also increase the total quality of our services. And altogether, we'll be able to raise the profile of the tax clinic.
So the CSU exists because of students that fund it, so it is absolutely imperative that the funds be used responsibly and in the best interest of the students. So I'll take a look at JMS and the CSU working together. So we believe, so with the CSU's funding, we'll recognize the CSU as a primary sponsor of the clinic. And we believe that this partnership will raise awareness, and more students will feel comfortable in coming to us to get their tax returns prepared for free. So additionally, working together, we'll be able to reach out to more students and make more people aware of the services that we offer. And it's a great service because it's offered, again, it's a free service, and it avoids them having to pay the fee. So it's an opportunity for the CSU to showcase that it is invested in an initiative that benefits both students and the Montreal community. And both parties hold no form of legal liability. So while we're preparing the tax returns, we have no legal liability to take into consideration. And working together, I believe that we'll be able to create a bigger and better than ever before tax clinic. So the CSU offers legal advice, they also offer housing, and we think that offering tax preparation services is another thing that students really, really need. So here we have the funds, so pretty much this is shown in the proposal that was distributed. So,
Thank you for this time.
do you have any questions?
Yes, Peter?
Yes, there's a question. So I know that you guys are from JMSB right now. Are you guys willing to open up to other faculties right now, or it's just that smaller to JMSB for now, and then later on open up? Like how exactly this partnership would work?
So the tax clinic is open, so the past 2 years it's been actually open to all the faculties and the eligible Montreal community.
It's just that we haven't been able to tap that demand because of our poor communication channels. Like you said, we are from JMSB. It is a small portion of the total, 35,000 students that are at Concordia. So that was the issue. So we feel like with the CSU, it'll just open up so many doors and reach out to those faculties, because we want all students to come. We don't want students to think that it's just for JMSB.
Thank you. Rowan?
Can we go back to the budget for a second, please? I don't have a question right now.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes, Sally?
Right now you're saying eligible students. What is an eligible student for this?
So the eligible criteria is, if you're an individual, it's $25,000 the cap of income, and if you're married or the limit goes to $30,000.
I remember last year I was checking you guys out, and international students weren't allowed to go.
So no, so the thing is that the CRA has specific criteria, right, for us. The issue with international students is that some of them would come mid-year. So the CRA told us that we couldn't file tax returns for students who were part-year residents. So instead of being if they were here the whole full year, then it's fine, right? Because they're permanent residents and they have like the papers. But if you came like, let's say September, we weren't able to file the tax returns for students who came like midway through the year. That was the only issue.
Well, international students are not permanent residents. They have visitor visas, but they could have it for 4 years or 3 years or whatever. Because I remember I was kind of like told not to, even though I've been here for a long time and I was working, but I couldn't use the service.
You had a T4 and everything?
Yeah,
You
usually-
had a SIN number?
Yeah, usually,
then you should have been
yeah,
fine.
you are eligible for it.
Yeah.
It's just if you're a part-year resident, if you leave halfway through the year or you arrive halfway through the
That
year,
was the only
then
issue.
you're not a full-year resident, which is one of the criteria.
Okay, thank you. Veronica?
Okay, so you guys, based on last year's actuals,
Yeah.
you guys bought 3 printers.
Yeah.
Are you buying more printers?
No, rented.
Oh, rented.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you.
rented.
Peter?
Yeah, just follow this question though, about the eligibility on students, or how about part-time student or graduate student? Are you guys also considering them or no? Like for the no, like either graduate student or part-time student?
Yeah, so graduate students, part-time students, as long as they are eligible under the CRA requirements, we are more than happy to prepare their tax returns.
They have the slips, they have the SIN, they're good to
Yeah.
go.
Rowan?
Yeah, just a recommendation that if the CSU, like if this partnership does go through, obviously I'm sure you still need printers like on the spot while you're doing it, but for things like marketing expenses, etc., I know the CSU could probably actually just print off like flyers, etc., for cheaper than you would get if you went outside. So looking at things like that would probably be beneficial.
Are you funded by JMSB anyway?
No, so the JMAS is funded by their sponsors. So like it's directly to the county student body. So like that's the money that we have for the rest of the year basically.
Are there any more questions? Yes, Eleanor?
So, according to last year, you ended up with 8,000, meaning you had more than what you were estimating for this year in terms of sponsors? But you're like heavily relying on the CSU for something you somehow already had last year?
Pardon?
No, I'm basically asking like how did you raise 8K last year and why is the CSU such a big part of your budget planning this year?
Oh, so last year the event was funded entirely by ourselves, by JMAS. So what we believe is that the tax clinic actually benefits all of the students within Concordia. So we really think that the partnership with the CSU, it's really the mission of the CSU to really benefit all of the students, and instead of just taking away from the accounting students, which is why our mandate exists.
And we've been funding it for the past years in order to prove ourselves and to basically show that we have the expertise. Unfortunately, like we have like other events, and it's becoming harder and harder to fund the tax clinic on our own because of the events that we have for accounting students.
Are there any more questions for our presenters? All right, well then thank you very much for coming, and thank you. Oh yes, Omar?
I'll move to allocate $7,000 to the JMAS tax clinic from the miscellaneous budget line.
All right, do we have a second? Daniel? Okay, is there any discussion or questions? Yes, Rowan?
Sorry, how much? 7,000? Okay, I thought you said 10.
Okay, is there any more discussion or questions? All right, in that case, all those in favor of allocating the money, please raise your placards. 14, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Perfect, so that carries. Is there any more discussion to be had on the JMAS tax clinic? Or do you have anything else to add?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your time.
All right, thank you very much for coming. And if ever there's any documentation that you want council to have, you can always pass it through me or any of the executives, and it'll get back to council. All right. So at this point, before we move on to substantive, it was brought to my attention that I accidentally deleted policy committee from the appointments. Sorry, my agenda making is not very stellar tonight. Can we just accept that we do a policy appointment if there's one? Is that consent?
Just leave it like that.
Is anyone opposed to it? Okay, perfect. So policy committee, Asma.
Yeah, so we have one space for any counselor to be sitting on the policy committee. We had 2 counselors that graduated and resigned last semester. So it's a returning point until we fill that seat. We have 3 counselors and 1 student at large and myself. We review documents that are referred to ourselves, any standing regulations, any aspect of standing regulation needs to be revised, any aspect of the bylaws. It does require some degree of commitment, so we are meeting at least once or twice a week. At the moment, we've been unable to meet before the 1st of February, but that doesn't prevent members from referring stuff and working on this individually and getting it ratified at the next policy committee. So yeah, it's a very interesting committee, and I strongly encourage anyone who's got time to move forward.
Thank you. Yes, Eamon?
What days do you guys usually meet? Do you have like a set?
No, so it depends on people's availability.
Is there anyone who'd like to nominate themselves for the policy? Yes, Eamon.
I'd like to nominate myself.
Perfect. Do we have a second? Jonathan. Is it Joe or Jonathan? Sorry. Joe. Okay, that's it. All right. Would anyone else like to nominate themselves to the policy committee? Okay, so your motivation.
The seat needs to be filled. Like, frankly, yes. Also, I have some experience working on policy for other groups, like my time that I've spent at QPERG. That's the gist of it, really. I don't have a whole big long spiel.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any more discussion to be had on Eamon's nomination to policy committee? All right, so if there's nothing further, all those in favor, please raise your placards. 15, all those opposed, 0, and any abstentions? 1. Perfect. So congratulations, Eamon, you're on the policy committee. And now we're at substantive. Is everyone okay with taking a short recess? Because I know there's food that's getting cold, or do we want to move to?
I'll move to have a short
Recess? Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll take a 15-minute recess. All right, everyone. At this point, we're on point number 7, returning business. So if you remember from last meeting, we tabled Ali's motion of 2-round voting. So the floor is yours.
To read it again, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. Whereas no electoral system is mandated on council choosing a candidate to fill a vacant executive seat, whereas a vacant executive seat might have more than 2 competing candidates, whereas a first past the post electoral system can vote in candidates with simple majorities. Simple majority is a majority in which the highest number of votes cast for any one candidate exceeds the second highest number, while not constituting an absolute majority of 50% plus 1. Whereas an absolute majority of more than 50% is required to vote in a new executive, whereas a 2-round system eliminates all candidates but the 2 with the highest number of votes for a second round, whereas a 2-round system ensures that the candidate chosen has an absolute majority of the votes. Be it resolved that the council use a 2-round system when voting on vacant executive positions.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second? Sophie? Great, your motivation?
Well, kind of discussed this a little bit last time, but I'll just, first thing, it's very simple to understand. The second thing is there are 2 types of electoral systems. One is majority system, the other one is proportional representation. Proportional representation does not work with this type of assembly, so we have to stick with the majority system. There are 2 types of majority electoral systems. There's the first past the post, which I explained here, and then there's the 2-round system. The first past the post basically doesn't ensure an absolute majority, which is the issue. So that's why we should always have an absolute majority, and this is why this motion came.
Great, thank you. So if everyone remembers from last meeting, we had tabled this with the purpose of looking up more information, getting more educated on the issue, not having to go around in circles discussing this endlessly. So with that in mind, hopefully people have brought up new points, and I'll open the floor to discussion. Yes, Mohammed.
So just a question. So I understand that it requires absolute majority. So what happens in the case where there's just, in terms of attendance, all the councillors aren't present? Because I'm assuming that's what's required, right? that every counselor is be present for the vote? Or you can just clarify, because maybe I'm not understanding it properly.
What you're talking about is the quorum of council. If council has quorum, council can vote on anything.
So doesn't that essentially also become first past the post? Because if there's quorum,
No, this is the responsibility of the councillor not being present for the for the voting, so that's something else.
Right, thank you. Sophie?
I think Rowan had his.
Oh, yes, Rowan.
I think what's being discussed is, like, at a meeting, under this motion, the way it would work is, let's say 20 counselors show up, then it's a majority of the 20 counselors that show up. The 8 or 10 that aren't here aren't counted in the majority because they're not a part of the quorum. I think that might help answer.
Yeah.
isn't that essentially what's already going on? Or am I just, sorry, isn't that essentially what's already
Well,
going on?
just to clarify, at a meeting, any vote taken is only the members that are here. So whatever we vote on, whether it be this motion or another, that's just general Robert's Rules of Order procedure. So it's only the people in the room that are counted as voting. So they're the only people that are there. The only time that a vote can't happen is if it's under quorum. And I think at this point, quorum is 8 or 9. I'd have to do the math. Yeah, 9. So yeah, the motion can't change what that is. So I hope that provided some kind of clarification. Sophie?
Yeah, what this motion is about like an electoral system for voting, for like electing a new candidate to fill a vacant executive seat. And so what we happened was like, when there was more than 2 competing candidates, we had a really long discussion just about how to vote. So I think this was trying to simplify when there's more than 2 candidates for a vacant seat. Just because first past the post works when there's only 2 candidates and it's like 50% one way or 50% the other way. But the moment you complicate that and add a third person, it can result with like a vote being split and maybe someone who wouldn't have gotten the majority getting.
So between the 2 candidates, one would have to get 50% plus 1%.
Yeah, so it's trying to simplify that.
Okay, thank you. Eamon? Okay. Is there any more discussion or questions regarding the motion? Yes, Ali?
Yeah. I know this motion is about.
Yeah.
I know this motion is about like vacant executive seats. I hope that if this motion passes, that the policy committee can review the motion and can look into adding that to, for instance, choosing the CEO or any other kind of type of election that might include more than one person inside of council. But yes, this is just the start.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if there's nothing further, and everyone's clear on the motion, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 13, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect, so that carries. Is there any more discussion to be had on the 2-round voting before we move on to new business? Okay, so if not, we can move on to Health and Dental Committee, and this was sent to me by Rowan.
Whereas Sule El Alawi held a seat on the Ad Hoc Health and Dental Committee, whereas due to a conflict of interest, Sule did not have voting rights on said committee, be it resolved that Camden Biggert be given a seat with voting rights on the Ad Hoc Health and Dental Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Joe. Your motivation?
So this is just kind of like tidying things up because it wasn't exactly clear with the original motion what would happen to Sule's seat when he resigned. I don't, whether or not it was the finance coordinators or Sule's himself. Furthermore, Camden obviously doesn't have the same conflict of interest that Sule had, and therefore can have voting rights. It's also mostly procedural since this decision doesn't actually have any authority-making power.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion to be had on this motion? Any questions? Okay, so if not, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. All right, so that carries. And is there any more discussion on Health and Dental Committee? Okay, so if not, we can move on to consent training. And Layla, this one's yours.
Whereas council must receive 3 hours of
consent training in accordance with Standing Regulation 214. Be it resolved that the second training will take place on Wednesday, February 7th from 6:30 to 9:30. Location to be announced, notwithstanding the date specified in Standing Regulation 214.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Sophie, your motivation, Layla?
So, as many of you hopefully know, as a counselor, you have to have 3 hours of consent training. Each year we have a consent training in the fall and one in the winter semester for new counselors, and also for counselors who were unable to come to the fall one for any particular reason. As a counselor, it is your duty to have this training, and if you don't have the training, then your seat could be up for a vote for you to be removed. Also, it's just a good practice, so that's probably a better reason to take the training. So it has to happen on Wednesday evening, so it's going to happen on the 7th of February. And if you already know that you're unable to go and you're either a new counselor or you're a returning counselor who was unable to go in the fall, you have to let me know before the training takes place that you can't make it, so that we can make alternate arrangements so that your seat isn't up for a vote for approval.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion or questions regarding the consent training? Yes, Peter?
There's a question for us who returned, who did it last semester, we have to do it.
If you took it in the fall, you don't need to do it now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, so if there's nothing further, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. So that carries unanimously. Is there anything else to be discussed on the topic of consent training? All right, so if that is all good, then we can move on to 8C, which is BIPOC motion. And Camden, the floor is yours.
Okay. Whereas BIPOC committee is one of 8 standing committees on council, and its membership composed of representatives from CSU office, CSU council, community groups, and Concordia students at large. Whereas council has been unable to fill the seats from its membership on BIPOC committee on multiple occasions, and the BIPOC committee is unable to remain operational due to lacking quorum. Whereas the current academic and advocacy coordinator, Asma, is a racialized student who fits the BIPOC membership criteria and has been attending all meetings as an observing member with no voting rights. Be it resolved that council approve the current academic and advocacy coordinator, Asma, as appointment as one of the 2 representatives selected through council with voting rights. Be it further resolved that this motion notwithstand the selection process proposed by the policy committee in order to facilitate the BIPOC committee to remain in operation. Be it further resolved that the BIPOC committee continue to reach out to racialized members until the selection committee is formed and report back on its progress at each consecutive meeting as outlined in the policy committee's recommendations.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second? What's it? Your motivation?
So we have 2 open seats that we've posted a call out for on the CSU website. We've received applications, but policy committee's recommendation was that we first build a selection committee in order to appoint the new members to the committee. The committee's been inactive for the past month or 2, so there are groups and applications that are awaiting response, and they've been waiting for a while. So we'd like to speed up the process and get running so we can give the responses as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Was it?
I was just wondering, the selection committee that was proposed by policy committee, why is it that it hasn't been created until now?
Do you have a direct response?
I mean, you probably don't know.
Or
so I know a bit, so we would have had to post a similar call out, but asking for people to be a part of this selection committee and then select those people to be on that selection committee before selecting members of the BIPOC committee. So we just wanted to speed things up a little.
All right, thank you. Is there any more discussion or questions regarding the motion? Yes, Peter?
So that means that if Asma gets into this, then she can vote, or what is that mean? So she can vote then?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any more questions or discussion? Okay, so with that we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of the BIPOC motion, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. All right, so that carries unanimously. Is there any more discussion to be had on 8C before we move on to informational? Okay, So with that, we can move on to 9A, which is Library Services Fund petition, and this was Michaela? No.
Oh.
Layla? Yes, there we go.
So some of you may remember from the Facebook post and the presentation from Guylaine, the librarian of the library, conversations about the Library Services Fund, and there's a committee that students sit on, and the Library Service Fund, really brief history, was established in 2009 by an agreement between the CSU and the library for students to contribute $1 per credit to the Library Services Fund in order to, for the three main things were enable 24/7 access to the downtown library, which they've done, and also actually done that at Loyola as well, have improved laptop and tablet loan systems, which they've done, and established the textbook and course pack reserve room, which they've also done. And that agreement was for 10 years, which is going to be up in 2019. So this was raised at the committee this year that this was going to expire, and the librarians were very enthusiastic that this could be renewed, and so were the members of the committee, so that these services could continue. Otherwise, they would have to start rolling things back. An example would be halting the 24/7 access to both libraries, because the costs to keep them open 24/7 is really huge and can't be done without this fund. So alongside that, and it's a really excellent committee to be part of as far as advocating for additional services within the library that students might want. We have decided to bring forward a petition to bring the question to referendum to, in almost every way, renew this fund, other than the fact that we are not going to be renewing it. We're establishing it as a new fund because then it allows us to renegotiate the terms of the agreement, so we can establish new goals to be met in 10 years. So in order to do that, we have to collect 750 signatures from undergraduate students to support this being a referendum question, because it involves a fee levy. So there's been a committee that's met, and we've been actively getting signatures on the petition, but obviously you may also remember the question to delay the submission deadline for this package for the campaign was pushed until the first Monday of February. So we're getting close to that deadline, and this is just a general call out to anyone who has like an hour or a day or 20 minutes where they want to come by the office. It's really easy. If you're interested, pick up a clipboard with the signature form. You can go around to your classes, you can make announcements, you can go to the People's Potato Line and gather signatures, because between the 5-ish people who are on the committee, it's a lot of signatures, but between the 30-ish people at council, it's not. So I will keep updating council and the committee about how many signatures we're at, but we're aiming to get 1,000 so that there's no possible issue with the 750. So please let me know if you have a free moment, because it's really important, and if we don't get the signatures for this, then we won't be able to bring it to referendum, or if we do, we have to figure out how to do so in a way that involves renewing it, not coming up with new points. All that to say, this is a great chance to talk to a lot of students and do what you did to get elected, plus some more, because it's 1,000 signatures.
Alright, thank you. Miguel?
To clarify, how many clipboards are there right now? Like, can there be 3 people working?
Yeah, there are 2 clipboards there, but there's lots of pages, and I can throw some more clipboards in there if there are people who want more.
Thank you. Yes, Omar?
Just a quick question for Leila. Who's going to be verifying these signatures? Because I'm just wondering if we are to do, for example, every day the People's Potato Line, we don't want a repetition of signatures, and to avoid them saying that there's not enough. So I'm just wondering where they'll be verified.
The signatures are part of the package that's given to policy committee to approve. So that's up to policy committee, how they want to do that. Yeah.
Alright, thank you. Okay, is there any more discussion or questions regarding the Library Services Fund petition? Okay, so if not, thank you very much, Layla. And we are on mid-mandate report, and Ron, this one's yours.
Oh, I thought there was another point, sorry.
Oh, I think there was something else, but I had stuck it in the wrong place, so I just
Okay, just give me 1 second to get my computer going. Actually, I can probably do. I've just got some questions with the mid-mandate report. Starting with the point on the housing co-op, there was something about because we might have to switch I believe the exact wording was that it was potentially going to fail. I was wondering if someone could clarify that, because just subtly putting that into a report seems problematic or concerning.
Omar?
Yeah, so that was just to be as transparent as possible. So the city of, or the borough of Plateau hasn't been as cooperative as we would like to be. Initially, when we made the funding proposal, or actually the proposal for a permit from the city, they said that if we didn't have a facade of brick, that would be okay, and that adds an additional cost of up to $200,000. Now, when it's in the final stages to approve the permit, they're saying that it's not okay. And then they've also asked that we turn the building around, which I think they've backed off on, but that's the demands that they've made. So right now, we don't have room for the $200,000, but I think that's just to let the city know the seriousness of the situation if they force us to do that.
All right, thank you. Did you have a follow-up? Yep.
More questions?
Yeah, unless anyone else wants to discuss. I don't think there's another answer.
Can someone also expand on the daycare point where it said that it had to be reapproved by the government? About how long is that expected to take? Is there a chance of it not being approved, etc.? Again, this was just kind of brushed over.
Omar?
Yeah, so actually that just happened in the new year as well. There's new legislation that has asked us to resubmit for approval from the city to be able to operate as a, from the government of Quebec, sorry, to operate as a daycare. We don't have a concrete timeline, but as far as the construction is concerned, it's going to go on as usual. There shouldn't be major changes, just that they have to re-verify all the aspects of the daycare.
All right, thank you. Anything else before Rowan has the floor again? Okay.
Do we have a, do we know about how long it took last time we had to be approved? Since we can probably
Last time it was about 6 months. This time it shouldn't be as long because all of our paperwork's already done. The part that we have to resubmit is just about 8 pages in documents. It's just one form of 8 pages. So because we've already gone through the process, we have everything. I think by now actually the form is probably already submitted. We've tried to get in touch with the person who submitted to the final, to a committee for final review. I said they'll verify our form to make sure that there's nothing missing so the committee doesn't delay it further.
Right, thank you. Anything further? Yes, Rowan?
And moving on again, I wanted to ask questions about the website. There's been a lot of delays according to the reports in June or whatever. It's supposed to be done by August. According to the reports in September, it was supposed to be done by November. According to the report in December, it was done already but hadn't been launched yet. And it still isn't launched, and there's never actually been any sort of concrete explanation for why it was delayed. And I happen to know from rumor that we've gone through multiple people or contractors or companies trying to make it. I haven't seen any sort of information on the costs associated with that, what happened, why, etc.
Yeah, so initially when we started the project back in June, we had hired a student who had done websites before, but wasn't able to do it due to the complexity of the website, the amount of content that was on the website, because especially we have a back end to the website that allows clubs to log in, that allows for clubs to log in and do the booking, and that's what's added the most amount of work. We've added another page for funding, so that's delayed it itself. Finally, we went on to a company that does it professionally on WordPress instead of Drupal that we currently use, and they're not, their expertise are not in making a back-end website, so they still don't have a proposal for the club's portal. Other than that, the website is done. We have a temporary domain to see how it looks. People that have been involved in the project know how it looks, and most parts are almost complete.
Okay, thank you. Michaela?
Yeah, actually, Rowan had a good question. Do we know, have we seen the finances? Because if there's multiple contracts, that means that you've been paying multiple people. And I think it's really important. I actually don't know who was hired and how that process went. So I think it's really important to know that the person's really qualified, especially knowing the extent of what the website is. They probably should have known that beforehand. Just kind of what happened and how much we spent on this.
So at the beginning of the year when we asked for proposal, some of the proposals that we got were up to 100,000, some of them were up to 50,000, and that's making a website from scratch, not WordPress or anything else. And then we had decided to go with WordPress because it's easy to maintain and do the upkeep. We actually haven't paid anyone else before the company that we're currently making the website with, and the one that we are with currently is 7,000. We do have a contract that outlines the different phases and what's included in each phase. And the way that the company was chosen is just that we went on Google because we had a difficult time finding someone who had an extensive portfolio of websites that were done. The reason why we chose this one is because GSA did their website with them, and they had done other clubs at Concordia, so we chose this company.
Okay, thank you. Rowan?
I move that a report be submitted to council explaining each delay in the design and publish of the website, and including all costs.
Okay, do we have a second? Sophie, your motivation?
Just since this wasn't really discussed in the actual mid-mandate report that was submitted to council, I think it's important that this be written down and explained both for council and for the larger student body at large. Yeah.
Thank you. Omar?
I think the contract has been seen by yourself, for one, and that was an extensive contract with breakdown of the phases. Multiple checks have been signed for yourself, so it's just making it sound like it's the first time you're hearing about it.
Rowan?
I mean, it's not the first time I'm hearing about it, but there's been numerous delays with no reasons given to council, no explicit description of why this has taken, what, it was supposed to be done in August? 5-6 months, if I counted that correctly right quick. Longer than it was supposed to, why it's been delayed multiple times. Yeah, the costs, a lot of this is already known, but I think that this has never been succinctly reported to council, and it's not just about me, it's about larger transparency at large, and that doesn't include just the signing authority, that includes reporting things to council, that includes having things written down, submitted to council as public documents, so that all students at this university can see.
Albertson, you want to talk about? All right, Omar and Kathy, use please.
I'll let Kathy go first.
Just a quick question. Who's in charge of this project exactly? Is just the whole CSU or?
Okay, thank you. Omar?
Yeah, so can you just specifically outline what you would like in the report beyond just the terms, terms of the contract and the delays?
Do you want to clarify?
Sure. As the motion says, explaining each delay, so actually putting into paper why it was not done in August, like what the causes were, and again, why it was not released in December or November, et cetera, and actually explaining what has caused these delays, and then including the costs, even if that's a 2-line sentence or if it's longer.
Thank you. Okay, is there any more discussion to be had? All right, so if any of the execs have any questions, obviously you can follow up with Rowan afterwards if you need any more specifics before resubmitting. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. Oh, sorry, can you just repeat the motion, please?
Sure. Move that a report which explains each delay in the design and publish of the website, and including all the costs, as roughly worded.
Thank you. Okay, so if everyone's clear on that, all those in favor, please raise your placards. 12. All those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So that carries. And do we have any more discussion on the mid-mandate report point? All right. Thank you very much. So at this point, we are on 9C, which is CSU credit card. And Sophie, this one's yours.
So just like a little brief recap, I submitted a motion at my first council back in December about over $1,000 of Uber usage on the CSU credit cards that had gone unaccounted for, as there were no receipts attached to it. Because we're still in the process of investigating when the motion was submitted, we tabled the motion. We haven't brought it back yet because we're still finding things out 6 weeks later. We're still trying to get all the receipts. As of right now, FinCom has gone over all the receipts with the general coordinator, but we still haven't had the receipts submitted to council. And FinCom was only showed a hard copy that was not submitted to all of FinCom. So once we've received all the information, we're still waiting on a bit more from Uber because it seems that there were multiple accounts maybe attached to the same credit card, and we're having trouble tracking down where the source was. But once we have received all the information, I think we'll be calling a special council to go over in full. And this is just to let counselors know to think about whether or not they'd like to be there to hear and locate sort of where this over $1,000 of money went, and how much of it was fraud and how much of it can be accounted for. And just really, at the end of the day, there was over $1,000. It's just kind of gone missing of student money, and it was managed to avoid the check requisition process, which is supposed to account for all student funds. So yeah, that's my point.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion on this agenda point? Okay, so if not, we can move on to a letter to CSU membership. And Omar, this one was yours?
Yeah. So I submitted this letter after the meeting on September 20th. It was asked that it be resubmitted. It was clear for the deadline. I wasn't sure if it was last time or this time, but I've looked it over. I've taken into account the comments that were mentioned, or the things that were mentioned last time from several counselors. I think I've been as clear as I possibly can in taking responsibility and apologizing for my actions, making sure it doesn't happen again, and stating what the real or what the problem was or the cause for concern was.
All right, thank you. Rowan?
I move to table until the next council meeting.
Okay, can we have a second? Sophie? Okay, so move to table doesn't have a discussion. So all those in favor of tabling this till next meeting, please raise your placards. 8, 9, Patrick? 9, okay. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, okay, can we just raise our placards high? All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, and any abstentions? 4. All right, so that carries. So this will be brought to council at the next meeting for discussion. Sorry, I'm just making a note. And Omar.
Can I still discuss this topic, or it's completely tabled?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just the acceptance of the letter that's going to be tabled. I received a lot of emails from counselors who just wanted more time to read it. It was submitted a little bit late, so in that sense, I think that it warrants more looking at before council can make a decision. When I received the letter, I myself passed it on to council because it's not really up to me to judge what's going to be contentious or not, but with the backlash of emails in the future, I'll be more careful to just kind of, if you send something that's going to be contentious straight up, to just disallow it and tell you to bring it back to council myself, because I do have the right to do that. So in the future, I'll just be a little bit more careful with that. And that being said, Omar, floor is yours.
No, I just wanted to ask why to be tabled, but I imagine it's because of the late submission, so that's fine.
All right. Is there any more discussion on this agenda point? Okay. So with that, we can move on to CUCCR, and Devin, this one's yours.
Yes, so if you remember the December 13th council meeting, Sucker came and did a presentation. So they have received their funding from RICIT Quebec of $75,000, and they would like to have another discussion with us next week, so February 1st. There will be a special council meeting, and Sucker will be presenting their requests for funds. So I just want to give you a heads up. The documents will be coming to you within the next day or so, so you'll have plenty of time to be prepared for it.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there any discussion or questions on the CUCCR? All right, so if there's nothing further, we can move on to question period and business arising. And I know that there's some excusals who thought that they might be here late and didn't end up showing up. Awatif?
Yeah, I moved to excuse Mustafa.
Okay. Do we have a second? Sophie? All right. Do you want to say anything? Or?
Yeah, he's sick.
Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 17, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. All right, that carries. I know that Julia was in class as well, and she couldn't make it or would have made it late, but since council's short today, she didn't end up making it, so if anyone wants to move for her excusal as well. Yes, Awatif? All right, do you have a second? Corner, Patrick, there we go. Do you want to add anything?
I know she's in class, and her class ends at 8, so she's probably in her way here.
Great, thank you. All those in favor of excusing Julia, please raise your placards. 14, all those opposed, sorry. 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect, so that carries. Yes, okay, Ahmed.
I
was not able to come on time because I had the class. I don't know.
You made it during the break, so it was before the 90 minutes.
Okay.
So you're good. No worries. And I saw another placard. Michaela?
So it's 90 minutes, so Julie has a class that ends at 8 o'clock. That's just making the time period, right?
That would be, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Usually we start a little bit later, like we'll start around 6:40, so it technically won't be 90 minutes, but yeah. All right, Sophie.
Yeah, I'd like to, this is a question for, I think, the CSU executive about the letter that was put out about the sexual misconduct allegations in the English department. I was just wondering what other concrete actions have been taken and if any pressure has been put on the administration, because I noticed that Alan Shepard, the president of the university, has claimed kind of ignorance, and sexual violence is something that I'm pretty passionate about as a survivor. So like, I was just wondering if the CSU planned on holding the administration accountable in any way, because Alan Shepard is also a member of the English department, and I just think that should be on the record, and just wondering what other concrete actions are being taken.
Michaela, was that to respond?
Yeah, I think other people can also respond, but basically at Senate there was very long discussion about this, and there was definitely pressure put on the university. The president basically had a very long explanation about what was happening, and students responded requesting an apology, talking about logistics of what this time frame is, because it's been very, very vague, and basically the response was that it'll be in June, but they're going to be reaching out because the process is going to be incorporating students. So even though it was kind of responded to, I think we're also kind of waiting on when exactly people or students will be involved. But it is like on camera to say that students are going to be involved. That is a for sure thing. And we have to hold the university accountable for that, because there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and students have to be at the forefront of this because it's about them. So.
Thank you. So I have a speakers list of Layla, Awatif, Joe, and then Ali. Layla?
Well, that's what I was going to say was explained by Michaela. I would like to reassure council that I was really, really pleased by the level of student voice that was raised at Senate on Friday. And I think it's very clear that students feel very strongly about the administration being held accountable. As far as other concrete steps, I think Asma would probably be able to give you some more details as well of other internal procedures. But one of the biggest challenges we've had is not being given a lot of information. So not having a lot to hold the university to, because they're being pretty cagey about how much information they'll give us moving forward. So right now it's a lot of like external pressure, but hopefully once we get some more details and undertake some more like internal mechanisms, we'll be able to have some more concrete answers to some questions that I think a lot of students have raised.
Thank you. Awatif?
Yeah, I heard June. What is going to be submitted in June? Is it a letter from the university, or what exactly?
Can someone clarify? Oh, Layla?
Yeah. So right now there were 3 steps that Alan Shepard proposed moving forward, and one of those involves an investigation. So the May-June deadline was about the report or recommendations from that investigation. That was the only concrete-ish date that was given as far as those 3 plans and any other plans the university may have.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, so they didn't start investigating it.
So they said that they're in the process of hiring an investigator, that an investigator has been hired and that the contracts are being finalized.
Thank you. Joe? Joe, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a little more context to what Michaela was saying about what Alan himself was saying in terms of involving students, but it's not just Alan, and we keep on getting these reassurances from like many different levels of administration at this school. Like in a car ride back from a CCSL meeting with Lisa Ostigay, she continually reassured us in the car that yes, the students will be involved. They're still not telling us how that's happening. I had a meeting with the Dean of Arts and Science who says, yes, we want to work with the students. They're still not telling us how this is going to happen. And I think that the school needs to tell us how it's going to happen and how we're going to get involved to make sure and foster a safe campus culture for the rest of our students.
Thank Thank you. Ellie?
No, that's it. Everyone just said everything.
Okay. Sophie?
Yeah, so just thanks for following up. But I think it would be important to push who is doing the investigation. And just to repeat again, it's really interesting that President Alan Shepard is part of the English department and is claiming that he didn't know about the culture of sexual misconduct in the department he's a part of. And just like, how is the investigation going to be handled? Was that talked about at all in Senate?
We have Layla?
Yeah, so that was something that was definitely a point of concern because it was also something that Case raised as far as one of their requests or demands in relation to this, that it be a third party that the students approve of. We were informed by the head legal counsel that that's not the way investigations work, and that this person was hired and they won't be revealed because it could affect the nature of the investigation, which is something that a lot of students, including myself, oppose strongly. But I think that if there's a desire for an investigator that's student approved, that may wind up needing to be on top of what the university is already doing.
Thank you. Asma?
Yeah, so there's multiple level of conversations that are happening, some at Senate, some that are happening with student associations, and there's a lot of interest naturally in what's going on. We have had some conversations. Layla and myself have been working on the outterm project on policy recommendation reviews and all the stuff that's been happening at the institutional level. We've had some delayed response on that level, and a lot of conversations and work that is related to the larger issue is being tied to the university's response when it comes to sexual misconduct issues and assault allegations. I think it's a bit of a tangle right now to get the university to respond appropriately to the demands that are being made. And my conversation with members has been mostly around how we can organize internally as a task force to do that. I've had some conversation with Layla quite late yesterday about this. And I was having a conversation with Joe during the break as well about specific tasks we're going to be organizing around. I was going to reach out to members specifically who were interested in this, and there will be something posted in the Facebook group in terms of whoever wants to work around this as a task force, or within council, and also membership groups outside for specific demands we will be making at the university, both in support of CASE, but also in terms of the systematic issues. We also have our services that have been dealing with this at a systematic level for very long, and there's been cases that have come out for many, many years now. So if you're interested in working and being more involved in terms of working group, then that's definitely one thing to do, to reach out to myself, and we can work on that. But in terms of revealing all the steps we were taking at this level might not be the best form, because it will have some impact in how we are going to carry out that work. But definite involvement from student leadership is going to be needed. So I'd invite anyone who's interested to reach out.
Thank you. How is it? Okay. Layla? Oh, okay. Might have been to answer a question before. Michaela?
Yeah, just another thing I'd like to add that was said that I talked about it at Senate, and that we really need to clarify from the university, is that what counts as evidence, because there's been so many students have come forward already, whether it's professors, admin, just to the media, like online, and it hasn't been addressed until now, really. There was one other case in the past that apparently was addressed, but not really to the point where this continued to happen. So that is a really big problem. So we need to know what counts as evidence. Students cannot keep, it takes a lot of emotional and, mental endurance to continue to tell these stories. It can also be quite traumatic, and for them to be dismissed or to be dissuaded to not tell their stories, or not to go through with a formal complaint. And I also did go to the English, because I'm an English minor. I went to the English department meeting that the admin held, and another issue is that the two faculty members who were there stated that there was only one formal complaint made in their years of in their positions as chair and as creative writing coordinator. And so that's a really big issue if there's only been one formal complaint, and that formal complaint wasn't even involving sexual assault. So there's obviously a really big issue that needs to be addressed with the complaint process, and And the fact that these chairs, these coordinators in the department have absolutely, apparently no idea of this happening is a really big issue. And they say that their doors are always open. Well, apparently they're really not, because students do not have this experience, and they can't say that when it's actually not happening. So yeah, the complaint process really needs to be changed or dealt with, so that these experiences, these stories don't keep happening, and it actually goes into some kind of action. So that was another really big thing to talk about. So.
Thank you very much. Daniel? Okay. Is there anything further on question period and business arising to discuss? Okay, so if not, we can move on to announcements. Yes, Ahmed.
As usual, I'd like to encourage everyone to check the CSU Facebook page. We've planned many events. We have DOI, we have Recipes for a Change, we will have the community consultation, and more events to be announced. So please check the Facebook page. Also, AVAC has a mobilization camp that will be taking place on February 2nd. So if anyone needs more information, they can reach out to myself and I can give them more information. That's it.
Alright, thank you. Devin?
So apparently these plates are obviously compostable, so they go into the bin right over here with the yellow poster, as well as these forks are also compostable, so they go in the same place. Also, yes, so if you read in the mid-mandate report, I spoke about how pen recycling will be happening soon, and I believe it should be starting by the end of this next week. So if you have pens that are old, just come up to the CSU office and put them in one of the bins. They'll be next to the ones that take batteries. So just be accepting all of your pens. No more garbage, yay!
All right, thank you very much.
First, quick question. Are the spoons compostable as well?
Yes, all the cutlery will be.
That was impressive. Yeah, I want to do an announcement on, not this weekend, but next. There's a transitions conference happening through the Concordia Food Coalition. It's a weekend-long conference through Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It has panels, it has workshops, films, including a panel on, or a workshop or a panel on like food movements in universities, etc. It's $15 or pay what you can for students. No one's refused, so if you can't afford it, it's fine. There's free food every day. It's a super cool conference that happens every year. I've passed around little pamphlets. You can find it on Facebook and register online.
Great, thank you. Anybody else saw hands up over there, Joe?
Yeah, just a little reminder to everyone that First Voices Week is next week, and it's an Indigenous-led initiative to acknowledge and celebrate local Indigenous peoples and communities at Concordia and within the Montreal area. It'd be nice for everyone to show up, hang out, and invite your friends to go and celebrate the beauty that is the Indigenous community.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any more announcements? Yes, Rowan?
I move to adjourn.
Yes, seconded by Veronica. All right, everyone, meeting adjourned.